A ping is going to lead you to something that's towards your higher self. How can you work with those pings in order to help prepare you, guide you, unblock you, expand you, take the aligned action to connect with your manifestation?
From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacey Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Expanded. Today we are diving into a very popular topic here at TBM, pings. If you're not familiar with the term pings, essentially a ping is that hit of intuition. What is that gut sense? What do your instincts say? We've talked about them in a bunch of different episodes before, but I feel like right now is a very important time to dive into this topic because as we have unblocked through the summer challenge and as you guys have been doing deep imaginings at home, it is creating space in our subconscious for our pings to come online even more. And what that looks like and how it impacts our manifestation and how to hear our pings versus our fear is a very, very vital part of moving this manifestation process along even faster. We're kind of in this portal right now where aligned action is becoming key, especially since we laid the foundation with our new neural pathways through doing this challenge and the unblocking work. Now when we're taking aligned action from this place of empowerment, of having attuned to those inner child stories and wounds that were popping up, things are starting to move faster. Now, our challenge is going to be up until Labor Day weekend, September 2nd at 11:59 p.m. PST. All the DIs will be accessible in the daily practice, so don't worry about that. But if you want to use the sequential pattern of the challenge, be sure to go in there. You can screenshot any journal prompts you want to save or any little segments that felt really important to you and keep going over that work. The effects that people are seeing from this challenge are unbelievable. People are having so much more clarity, manifestations coming through, really feeling like they're actually on the other side of their block where they haven't been before. So I highly recommend checking out if you guys haven't yet. And then in September, we're going to be launching last summer's challenge, which was our Magnetic Self Challenge, as a permanent workshop in the pathway called How to Be Magnetic. It's kind of the perfect segue because we're clearing out those blocks with the current summer challenge right now. And then you guys will have that new permanent workshop in there to utilize all through the fall to really fortify who are you now? Who is your true magnetic, authentic self on the other side of these limiting beliefs in this new season of life? And then when we get together in the winter to craft our new manifestation list, you will be doing it from that truly authentic, magnetic place. So if you are worried about what to do next or what's coming up for you or how to navigate the membership for the rest of the year, we have you covered. We got your back. We are going to be along for the ride. But I'm really excited to dive in today. We have some insight from some of our expert interviews previously on intuition, but I'm going to kind of share some new insight and perspective of how to really distill down pings. So let's get into it.
And now a word from our partners.
As someone that talks a lot for their job, and I'm not just talking about podcasting, I am on calls all day with our teams, on Zooms, on working sessions, on phone calls, constantly talking. And that really starts to wear on your throat. Sometimes at the end of the day, I feel like my throat is so fatigued. But one of the products I absolutely love using that helps me support my throat in this is the Beekeeper's Naturals Propolis throat spray. Now, you've probably heard my emphatic love for Beekeepers Naturals products. They are reinventing the medicine cabinet, creating clean, effective products powered by the beehive and backed by science. Their founder, Carly, was truly looking for an alternative for so many different products out there because she wasn't able to take a lot of the medicines that we find in our typical medicine cabinet. And she wound up discovering that a lot of the ingredients that are used in the beehive are so supportive to our immune systems. They're packed with vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and B vitamins and all the things that are good and fantastic for our body, our brain, our immune, all of the things. So not only is their propolis throat spray soothing to my throat, but because it is made with propolis, which is the defender of the hive, bees use propolis to line the walls and keep germs out of their hive. So when we use it on our scratchy throats, it helps us combat free radicals, damage to the body. It helps with good gut bacteria. It has vitamins B, C, and D, zinc, antioxidants, and 300 other plus beneficial compounds. So not only is it soothing my throat, but it's also helping my immune and my body from the inside out. I love using the throat spray, especially with the nasal spray when traveling or going to be around big crowds. When I do both at once, the nose and throat, it helps coat the lining of my mucous membranes in my nose and actually acts exactly how bees intend the propolis to act, which is lining the walls of it and catching any germs before they go in. So when I go on a flight or I'm going in a big crowd, I'll use the throat spray on my throat. I'll use the nasal plus spray on my nose. And that really helps protect me from any outside germs that I may be surrounding myself with. I especially love their nasal spray too, because they not only have propolis, just like the throat spray, but also oregano oil, eucalyptus and xylitol and saline. So it helps really stimulate the mucous membranes in there to catch any free radicals and germs and leaves you in the best state for fighting all of that off. And we have a special discount for you guys. If you want to test out any of the Beekeepers Natural products or you're looking to restock again, you can use the code TBM to receive 20% off. Again, that is code TBM, all caps, for 20% off. Check out at the Beekeepers Natural website or check the link in our show notes and then type in the code TBM on checkout to get your discount.
All right, on to the episode.
So what are pings? How do they connect to our intuition and how do they connect to our manifestations? So as you start going through this TBM work, you will get these subtle gut or mind pulls to lead you in certain directions. And this is a big part of the aligned action, right? So in the TBM manifestation process, you need 3 things in motion: expanding, unblocking, aligned action. And when it comes to aligned action, it's often those little subtle whispers that are saying, start the podcast, break up with that boyfriend, go on that date night, or move cities, set the boundary with that person. That person's not aligned for you anymore. There are these very subtle things that kind of pop in that help to guide our aligned action. They are our intuition speaking to us, our wisdom, our higher self, the universe, source, whatever you like to think of it as. But it is this highest self knowledge that is dropping into you that is trying to shift your reality towards your highest good and what you're manifesting. So at TBM, we call this intuition pings. And Lacey coined this term because it is literally how it pops into your mind. It is like, ping, here's this idea and concept. And I also really love the idea of calling it pings because it makes you kind of stop in your track and take these little thoughts a bit more seriously. I am someone who didn't really feel like an intuitive person. I wanted to be intuitive. I wanted to have, all these thoughts and be connected to spirit and all of these things, but I didn't realize that I already was. And what I mean by that is those little tiny messages that are in your soul that are kind of bubbling up, they sometimes aren't even that loud. You could almost mistake them for like an intrusive thought or a random idea and discredit them. But the more you follow them, and I'm going to distinguish the difference between an intrusive or an anxious thought, a fear thought, or a ping in your intuition. But when you can distinguish the ones that are truly coming from an aligned place, not from fear, and follow them, you realize those tiny little messages actually pack a punch. They have a huge power behind that when they come to manifestation. So what are pings? Pings are the intuitive messages that the universe is sending you to connect with your manifestation. It tells you to take a certain action, go to a specific place, connect to a specific person, and they help to expand you, unblock you, or are the actual aligned action you need to take in order to get closer, if not connect, to your manifestation. And when they connect to our aligned action, it is often because we need to step through fear or jump off a cliff and take that action. So how do pings show up for you? Kind of what I said before, they can be very subtle. And if we think about the psychic abilities, right, they can come through the five senses. You can have them through feelings, visions, in your mind's eye, an inner voice, a smell, or a taste. They can even be that deep inner knowing where it's just like, I don't have the words, it's not a voice in my head, but I just know this is what I'm meant to do. Or you see a visual place, or maybe you smell a certain scent that reminds you of something and it's drawn to that. And maybe it's a soft, subtle voice in your head that's just kind of calling you and pinging you a certain way. They can come through differently at different times. So you want to start to get curious if you haven't connected with your intuition and your pings yet. If you don't even consider yourself an intuitive person, start to notice those subtle draws of what actions you should take in certain scenarios. I will also say a lot of people call, and especially like super masculine. I remember talking to my fiance Daniel about this. You know, he's like, yeah, I have gut instincts. I'm like, those are your pings. And the more he started to recognize them, write them down, and understand the difference between a ping and sort of a fear thought, or, you know, our inner child in the driver's seat trying to get its needs met in a different way, and actually follow them, he would see incredible results. And obviously the community has as well. So I'm going to go through a ping checklist on how to spot it. If it's a ping, which means it's your intuition, it's going to feel clear and direct. It will feel like a calm knowing. There won't be a trigger or strong emotional reaction around it. It won't be like, oh my God, it's so scary, I have to do this. You might have fear when you go to take action, like if you're stepping through fear to set a boundary for the first time. But there is this sense that like, oh, this might be scary, but I have to do this. This is for my highest good. It's not a fear mongering, like if you don't do this, something bad will happen. It will not come through like that. And it will lead you towards your high self-worth decisions. It will never lead you back down to a low self-worth pattern you're trying to break or an old habit. So if you think you're getting a ping to text your ex, probably just a fear or an intrusive thought or an anxious thought. It's not actually leading you back towards your ex. And the last piece to kind of note here is that a ping might sometimes not logically make sense. It might feel random or scattered. Sometimes my pings are like, go to this coffee shop. I'm like, what the heck does that have to do with my manifestation, my self-worth? Like, I don't really understand. So it's important that even if you can't follow your ping in the moment, jot it down and you come back to it and you try to follow it and note what happens when you follow that. Now, it's a test, or it's your inner child running the show, or it's going back to a pattern that you've settled for in the past. If it impedes on a boundary you've set for yourself, so ping will not ask you to cross your own boundary. If you feel shame or embarrassment around it, that's likely a test. If it makes you settle or feel small, again, the going back to your ex, if you already decided this relationship is not for me, it's not going to make you go backwards into something like that. Now, it's a compulsion or an anxious thought or intrusive thought if it is leading to a low self-worth pattern you're trying to break. So let's say you're trying to stop eating cookies at night, and then you're like, oh, but I really want the cookies. That is not a ping. That is just probably your body craving the sugar that you usually feed it. It's just that compulsive energy that's trying to go back to the habit. When you're in the cycle of breaking the habit, you want to go on the path of least resistance, which is the path that you've been on before, where you were doing the habits you don't like. A ping is not going to lead you back to those habits. A ping is going to lead you to something that's towards your higher self. How to spot the compulsion again. Is it aiding you in avoiding a feeling or seeking temporary relief, perhaps by numbing? Again, so if you're breaking a habit that you don't want to be doing, you know is not aligned for you, and your gut is like, oh, I want to do this. that is probably just trying to break that habit versus an actual ping. And it's a compulsion if it came from a reactive response to a trigger or has a strong emotional reaction in it. It's not a calm inner knowing. If there's a lot of fear, if there's intensity of emotion, if it feels do or die, that's likely not a ping. So hopefully this can start to discern. We have this checklist in our workshops. We have it in How to Manifest. We have it in the Radical Pings workshop. So if you ever need access to this, you can always check this at any time. So how do our pings help us to manifest? Now, this is something I first want to talk about and share Janelle and Lacey's thoughts on. So one question we get asked a lot, and it's a big, big component of your manifestation process, Lacey, but pings. It's really what helps us connect to our intuition, discern what's for us, what's not for us, and helps lead us to expansion with our manifestations. How did you sort of dive into pings? What are pings? How do you see them? How do you see them in tandem with this manifestation process? And the other question too in that, and I know this is a lot at once, but you're someone who's so intuitive. You really have gifts in that. Are all pings intuition? Are they one and the same thing? Or could you see intuition, psychic abilities as a 2.0 of pings? How do you see them all working together?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with the first. Pings, I think, are a big deal because I want to say it's the most abstract part of our process, maybe expanders, because both you have to feel into. And in society, we've been really directed away from our intuition in every way, shape, or form. And so I think a really big piece of manifestation, especially even doing our work, is intuiting what you need to do and where you need to go. So I really brought pings in to be a focal point of that. Instead of just having, in a lot of manifestation, literature out there, there's not a process. There's not a step by step by step. And I was like, we need a step by step by step for people once I clarified that. And so pings was what I put in to really have people start reclaiming their intuition again and feeling into it, because every one of us has all 5 of those gifts, those sentient gifts. We just have them stronger in different places. And because we've been so shut down, go to this type of school, do this type of learning, go to this type of work, have this type of job, get married, it looks like this, partnership looks like that, retire, die. That's the societal programming. And so not many of us are super in touch with our authentic selves, with our intuition, with our gifts. And a lot of people don't really know what our intuition is. And that's why through this process of having recognition of pings and starting to document pings and following them, you start to strengthen your trust muscle and you start to realize how your pings are. So to answer the question further, we all have gifts. We all receive communication from the universe, from our guides, from outside sources. The universe is going to keep communicating with us until we follow what it's saying. It's just going to keep happening through dreams, through all of these different avenues. And so the more that we tune into them, listen to them, work with them, the stronger we're going to get at working with our intuition and trusting it. But I also really want to hear your perspective, Janelle, just literally from a therapeutic standpoint of somebody who's been totally disassociated from being able to listen to themselves and how to start to reclaim and reconnect with that, because there's therapy and science behind pings as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why these somatic practices are so incredibly important, because we have to know first, what is truth feel like in our body? What is the sensation of truth? It basically is discernment. If we are just in our heads with a ping, we could basically talk ourselves into anything, versus when we're connected to the sensation of truth in our body and we also have our head, it's this connection that is that's it. That's why somatic practices are so, so important, because essentially we have this filter, which we receive these intuitive hits and downloads, and we need to clean our filter in order to have it register. So there's a million ways to ground and connect back and to find your center, but cleaning that filter allows for a stronger intuitive hit. The second piece is to understand, really become so self-aware of our own trauma map. Cleaning the filter is like, whoa, am I disassociated? How do I get back into my body? What does truth feel like? Being into the sensation. But also, I think it's very important to understand our trauma map. What's the 14-year-old story of that what's the 5-year-old story? What parts of me can come out? And, a ping is a very clear, very grounded truth. It's almost like I'm just supposed to do this thing. And it comes from, for those that are just listening, I'm pointing my hand up to the sky, but it's like coming from our highest self. It's coming from our highest values, from our deepest alignment for our deepest evolution, versus it's not a ping. I'm going to call it an urge. So trauma responses come on this plane. So is my ping coming from this plane up and down, or is it coming horizontally, which is really a trauma response? So the trauma responses show up as it's like an urge. It's almost like a high. It can feel panicky. It can feel kind of buzzy. And it's almost like this, I have to do this thing in order for me to feel regulated. It's almost like this compulsion. Well, I need to buy this. Well, why do you need to buy this? Maybe there's a younger part in yourself that's needing to be self-soothed. That is not a ping. A ping is very it's a little bit more boring, to be honest. It's a little bit more grounded. This is the information. The best way I can explain it is when we go through trauma, there's this sequence of events that our bodies want to complete. And so there are these parts of us that want to have a corrective experience. And that part of ourselves is what that urge is. Well, I need to buy this. I need to go talk to this person. I need to go do these things that, again, are not in our highest alignment and values. Once that trauma is cleared, the urge dissipates. So if you have that urge or that high or that rush, it's really informing you that there is some young part of yourself that is needing a corrective experience.
Oh, this is such good discernment. And that's such clarification between a ping versus an urge. This is so big, so big.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of even with financial decisions. So many times people can be like, no, this is the items on sale that I wanted and I have to buy it now. And the ping is pinging me to get it right now. And I think kind of what you were saying, Janelle, like that sense of urgency, if it is layered with a very elevated emotional reaction, it's almost like if it's hysterical, it's historical. If there's a high elevation and franticness and activation, or like, oh my gosh, I have to do this, I'm going to miss out. If there's a FOMO element, it's not a ping. That is going back to that urge. That's going back to the compulsion.
Absolutely, because a ping will always subtly continue to come through and continue to come through. It's like a gentle, when I'm energetically reading it, it's like a very gentle wave coming in, then it's going out and coming in. Like that's how it comes through. Is that your experiences as well?
Sometimes, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but sometimes it's I'm supposed to do this. And, I got that when I was starting my group practice. It was like, it's time. Like, oh shit, I'm supposed to do this and it's time. So there might be a little even fear there, but there's this deep knowing of I'm supposed to do this. And that piece kind of overrides the fear, even though there still might be a little fear there for me.
This is actually a pretty good distinction because, for instance, pings that are going to lead us to expansion. However, when it does have that little feeling of fear around it, creating situational magnetism. If I walk through this, I would argue that that's leading us closer to our manifestation. Both are in that direction. That's what they're both communicating. One's like, you need to be expanded more. You need to jump off of cliffs more, take aligned action more, because that's sort of the two routes you can go. Both are aligned action, but one is going to lead you maybe a little bit more into situational magnetism and your manifestation, and another may just be communicating expansion. I don't know if we're able to share the experience of somebody who supports us on our team recently, who has had a large ping for a long time to leave their position at a really glossy job that is very secure. And then got a very small, subtle ping that was like, look at your bank account. And that was an expansion ping that was, when she looked at it, she realized, oh, I do have 6 months of an FU fund. I really can leave. Whereas the one that created like, it was just bigger. It's a bigger jumping off of a cliff aligned action. That's probably going to create the magnetism for what she is calling in to come through if she's unblocked and expanded enough. But it sounds like the other gentle one was towards expansion to go, hey, here's your last piece. You may need an expansion to see you have enough to go. That's a really good way to decipher, I think.
Okay, so you started to hear it here in this segment with Lacey and Janelle. But when you follow a ping, it will either lead you to one of the 3 parts of the to be magnetic process. So there are pings that lead to expansion. And what does that mean? It allows you to think of yourself differently. It allows you to feel a stronger sense of self-worth. It allows you to see to believe what you want is possible. It gives you, sometimes it leads to expansion of a trust muscle that you are working with the universe. One ping that I had early on was I got a ping to go to a coffee shop, and I got to the coffee shop and this celebrity who I had looked up to for a very long time was in the coffee shop. The sole purpose of that ping was to let me know that A, unexpected things are possible. You could show up and meet your expander randomly in a coffee shop. But B, that if this person could do the thing that I admired in them, this celebrity could do, what they had launched with their brand, which I thought was really, really cool. I could do my own version of it, right? I could have my own career that I felt just as passionate about and speak in the public eye. And the fact that we were going to the same coffee shop in a weird way felt like it put us on equal footing. And so that was a small moment of expansion. Now, these pings that lead to expansion sometimes can be as simple as pinging you to take a different road home. And it's not like when you take the other road home, your manifestation will be waiting for you, but it somehow helps your mind to open up to new possibilities. So many times I get pings of expansion for joy, for the joy of right now, for the joy of the moment, almost like pings to boost my mood. I see those as the pings of expansion. I had this recently where one of the ways I was trying to cultivate and work with my pings in a deeper way at the end of the day, Theo, my puppy, and I always go on a little, what we call an adventure together. I would try to really sit and say, okay, universe, where should we go? What park should we go to? What hiking trail? Should we go to the beach? Give me a ping in the space we should go. And I would follow it every single night. And it was the perfect hike, the perfect timing. We got back by sunset, like something wonderful would happen in following those pings. And now it helped open the door of communication to those pings because now I know what it feels like to follow it to go to a certain location versus another. And those are a lot of pings of expansion. And some of them were even pings of unblocking, which is the second option. So pings that lead to unblocking is really pings that lead to that lightning bolt moment of like, oh my gosh, I understand why this connects to this and this is my root block. Or, oh my gosh, I actually no longer feel this thing that was tripping me up before. And I have a really good example from our members. She writes, I wanted to share a major unblocking moment I had recently related to money, which I know connects to love. So I got a new therapist because the one I had for 10 years, I know, was just not honoring my time and made me feel disrespected like an ex in the past did. I told myself I could never be with another therapist because I knew my old one for 10 years, but I knew that I deserved better. Anyways, in our first session with her new therapist, which is the intake where she asked me questions, I unblocked the exact reason why I don't bring money in like how I want to, because I felt undeserving of the money I had growing up. I was like, holy shit, I just figured out my money block. If I don't feel deserving of the money, then how can I get the love I desire and deserve? I'm still going through the challenge, but from a career perspective, this has changed things. And I think this is really important to clock as a ping. She knew for a while, it sounds like, that her therapist was not the person she needed to be working with at this time. And when she followed that ping and took the action and found a new therapist, immediate reward, immediate clarity, immediate lightning bolt moment of like, oh my gosh, when I followed this ping, it actually led me to the perfect therapist who's going to give me that space or format or just a new way of thinking. So I understand that my money block isn't that I'm just not deserving of money. It's that I didn't feel deserving of it as a child. And now as an adult, I still don't really feel deserving of it. And I don't feel deserving of the love and connection that come with that as well. So that's one for unblocking. Now, the last one is pings that lead to aligned action. These can go from small to big. So these are the pings that are asking you to take a very specific action, oftentimes jumping off a cliff in some way, stepping through major fear, clearing major space, putting yourself out there. And they are the big pings that keep coming over and over and over again. When you follow pings, obviously you're taking aligned action, but these are the ones that this action is a key component to connecting with your manifestation. So when you get these are the things like, you have to leave the job, or you have to end the relationship, or you have to move cities, or you've been getting this message for years to start a podcast and you have to start a podcast. That is what's going to come up with these big aligned action ones. And in following them, it is like a snowball of everything you want with your manifestation on the other end. So for the aligned action ones, think about the example I said earlier. So the girl who checked her savings account, saw she had the FU fund. The ping to leave the job was that big block sticking in her way. Her communication to the universe saying, I'm not going to settle for this anymore. I'm not going to settle for this corporate job that I'm unaligned in. I've been doing my unblocking. I've been doing my expanding. I'm following my pings. I've been setting myself up on the side to launch, her freelance business. And once she took that step to jump off that cliff, she followed that big ping to take that aligned action. Boom. First freelance client came through very shortly after. The other thing to think about here is, I know this can be like, okay, there's a lot of different angles all the pings could take. You actually don't need to know where the ping is leading you at all. And you likely won't know until a little bit of time after you followed the ping. You're only really going to understand how the ping led you to the next step when you're looking backwards. And that is why it is so important to track your pings, to write them down when they come in, to try to follow them as soon as you can, to know anything that came through after you followed them, or anything that came through in the near future after you followed them, in the weeks, months leading after that happening, what transpired from that ping. So when you get a ping in the future and you might be afraid to take action on it or step through that fear, or maybe it's a really big ping, like the leaving the job one, the thing you have to do, you can look back and say, well, when I followed my pings here, and here, this is what came. It was whatever I had and then something better. It's always this and something better. So how can you work with those pings in order to help prepare you, guide you, unblock you, expand you, take the aligned action to connect with your manifestation? I will also say one big thing that I think is so pressing with pings right now is that it feels like there is a lot of momentum built up. There's a lot of action potential. Yes, astrologically, but also because of the work I think we've all been doing collectively. I feel it talking to you guys online. I see it in the community group. There is a lot of action potential happening right now. If we can get still and really hear what small and big actions we need to take by following these pings, it helps guide us in such a beautiful direction. And it also deepens your trust muscle and safety and security to self. That was something I also noticed after this challenge, where it felt like my intuition just came online in such a big way that it really hadn't in a while. And it makes sense because when your body is disconnected from your head, a lot of our intuitive gut neurons connect with our intuition and our introception, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But I think when we are more connected to our bodies, we are more present in the moment, we can kind of tune in to what's going on. We can click into those messages we need to hear. And thus the communication becomes faster and quicker with our intuitive parts. Since going through this summer's To Be Magnetic challenge, I've been really focusing on how I can take care of myself even deeper for the rest of this summer. So for me, that looks like a lot of time outside in the sun, in water, daily nature hikes, some strength training to keep my muscles strong, and taking my supplements to make me feel my best, especially ones that support my gut. I've noticed a huge correlation that when my gut is in good health, so is the rest of my body. And that is why I love taking Seeds DSO1 Daily Symbiotic. It is a 24-strain pre- and probiotic that helps benefit your gut, your skin, your heart in just 2 little capsules per day. I will take mine first thing in the morning with a cup of lemon water right before I take our pup Theo out for a little nature walk. I notice a huge difference in my regularity. I'm able to go to the bathroom more regularly, which is a key sign of good gut health and good digestion. Why I love Seed versus any other probiotic on the market is one, they are the most science-backed. They have so many trials and research behind why they put every single strain in there and creating the capsule formula in order to make sure it goes to the right part of the digestive tract to actually make an impact on the bacteria that is in your gut. And it is also the most sustainable. All their packaging is completely compostable. They have a refillable glass jar that they just give you monthly packaging for. So it is really the best of the best. If you are looking to support your gut this summer, you can try Seeds DSO1 Daily Symbiotic. Go to seed.com/magnetic and use the code 25magnetic to get 25% off your first month. Again, that is code 25magnetic, MAGNETIC, all caps to get 25% off your first month. Now, Dr. Tara is going to explain introception and really the science behind our intuition.
It is literally, like medically speaking, your sixth sense. So you know how sometimes people refer to intuition as your sixth sense, and it's kind of like a saying. Interoception is actually after the 5 senses of vision, hearing, smell, taste, sound, and touch. It's the sense of the state of the physiology of the inside of your body. It's how do you know if you're hungry? How do you know if you need to go to the bathroom? And of course, we see that, small children develop this sense in the first sort of year or 2 of their life. And when we're older and it gets more complex and nuanced, it goes beyond just those physical things to, let me ask you both. Are you one of those people who works really hard and then when you go on vacation, you get sick? Or are you one of those people who 2 days before you have a cold or a flu, you just know that something is out of kilter in your body? You don't have an obvious sore throat or a cough or a runny nose, but you just know that something's not right in your body.
On the ladder.
Yeah, same. Me too.
I shifted. I used to be the, oh my gosh, once I get that release of vacation, I would get sick. But now, after doing a lot of that inner work, now I can notice immediately. I'm like, oh, I really need to rest a lot this week. I can feel something coming on and I can usually snuff it out before it rears.
Mm-hmm, same.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Yeah, I mean, it's so incredible. You just feel like a whole different sense of power of your body. And I think that the work that we're trying to help people to really understand and take on is having that same sense of having more power over your mind and your thoughts and your subconscious beliefs. So interoception is, although it's quite a physiological term, I love the way you've connected it up to your brain is also part of the physiology of your body. So it's about understanding how your beliefs and your intuition might be shifting or trying to tell you something. Because we've talked about some very basic things like with children. We've talked about some more complex things and tends to be more in adults. But the kind of people that I work with, the stressed executives, they don't listen to months of chest pain.
Wow.
And they're surprised when they have a heart attack, So there's the whole spectrum with that. So if we move it away from just the physical, but the connection is very much that the gut neurons have a direct connection through the vagus nerve to the limbic or intuitive part of the brain. The gut bacteria communicate with the gut neurons, and we know now that they separately communicate directly with the brain, not through neurons, but through chemical messengers in the blood, which is called cytokine transmission. So there's both neural and cytokine messaging in a 3-way between the brain, the gut neurons, and the gut bacteria. To the point that the Canadian government recently released some research that shows if you take 3 particular strains of probiotic bacteria, that it actually has an impact on your mental health, not just your physical health, with evidence that it improves sleep, it reduces stress and anxiety, and serious mental health issues like depression. So if you think about it like that, if you think about understanding the physiological state of your body, if you think about this 3-way connection between our guts and our brain, then it starts to make sense that if you're not looking after your body, if you're under stress, which damages your gut bacteria, if you're eating a lot of processed food, if you're getting sick a lot, then how are you supposed to access your intuition if the physical structures that support your intuition, your gut neurons and your limbic brain aren't well? There's a beautiful sort of Buddhist term that says it's everybody's responsibility to look after their physical health, because without that, they can't be mentally healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, it's an easier place to start. The things that you can do around sleep and exercise and diet and supplementation will naturally make your intuition stronger. And then you can make decisions based on your intuition, and you can see how it just completely gets exponential from there. So if you're really tuned into that kind of thing, you do get a sense of when it's working, when it's not, when you get a ping, or more so like an intuition, because I kind of just tend to think of an intuition as a bigger ping, that you think, okay, this is what that is, so I really need to listen to it. But if you haven't done the inner work, then you may just not recognize what it is at all.
So how do we strengthen our intuition? Intuition is not something that is just for some special people out there. Every single person has intuition. We can utilize it. We can lean on it. We can work with it. We can develop it. It's like a muscle. We can continue to build on it. And what we're building on is that trust with self. A friend of mine, Taylor Page, who you'll hear about in a moment, talks about how the intuition is the sum of the times that we have trusted ourselves. The strength of our intuition and our pings is the sum of the times that we've trusted ourselves. If you are working on feeling safe and secure to put your authentic self out there in the world, to follow the things you want to do, to follow your dreams, to manifest your authentic life, one of the best ways to do that is be your own safe and secure resource, and building up your intuition and building up that trust muscle that you can listen to your instincts, you can listen to your gut. You don't have to outsource that to other people. You can if that feels good, but you also have that resource within you. That is going to give you that self-worth that, okay, I have the tools within me to be able to guide myself through life. So we're going to hear from angel intuitive Taylor Page, who we've heard on the podcast before, talk about the difference between fear and our intuition and our pangs.
So fear is the best liar in the game. Fear is the best liar in the game. And one of the ways that you can just catch it in its lie right away is when it takes you out of the now. When it either is like, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, future, 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 or it's like, remember how this happened, remember how that happened, past, past, past. But it's hard to lie to you in the now because you're right here seeing everything. So intuition is like, you're safe, do this right now, move forward in this way. And fear is like, oh, be really scared because this could happen, that could happen, it happened before. And so that's a main way to see fear versus intuition. Fear stirs up your insecurities and intuition calms them. Fear is so loud. Fear is so loud. It's like you're lying awake at night with all these fearful things, whereas intuition, you need to make practice and sacred space and be intentional to hear it and connect with it. So there's so many ways, but mostly fear is lying, and fear is preying on your worst insecurities and shadows and past experiences and trying to pretend like it's a premonition. And your angels, your guides, your own intuition, your higher self is calm, quiet, loving, solution-oriented, forward-moving, and rooted in the now.
So how do you strengthen your intuition? slow down, regulate the nervous system. When we can start to slow things down, not fill our day, crowd our day with a million one things to do, even taking 5 minutes, 10 minutes of just present breath. When we can sit with our surroundings, one of the somatic experiencing exercises we put in a lot of our deep imaginings is to orient to the space that we're in. What's in front of you? What's behind you? Do you hear the air conditioning blowing in the side? Do you feel a cool breeze on your skin? Can you tap into the entire bodily sensations that are around you? If you don't have space to tap into that, those little messages, it's almost like cleaning your vessel. If you can't clean the vessel, it's going to get clunky. You're not going to be able to hear it. There's going to be a lot of fear and overreactivity coming up. Fight or flight might be popping up, and those fear voices might come in. So slowing down, regulating your nervous system, removing stimuli, removing TV or social media, news outlets, anything that could kind of put their perspective or energy onto you. Give a minute, put that aside for a second, disconnect, silence all the voices in your head as best you can. I know that is so hard for some people. Sometimes even free write journaling, you can just say, universe, what are the pings you would have me know? And just trust. Give it a shot. Even if it feels kooky and crazy and you're like, I just made this up in my head. This isn't real. Write it down and follow it and just see. Use it as an experiment. And then once you follow it, know what comes up on the other side. Any little glimmers, any little positive moments that day, any moments of expansion, any moments of joy. Are you tapping into joy in your system through following pings? Could be really helpful. And here's a note from intuitive Natalie Miles on how to connect with pings and your intuition and take that action. How do you navigate those phases where maybe we're being tested, we know we need to detox and delegate that part of our life, or we have to say no to that thing? Okay, we can start taking action towards that. We have some pings and some clarity of where it's going to go next. But when we're like, okay, right now is not the moment to take the action or do the thing, there's still that in-between period. Like, how do you navigate that?
Great question. I think I'm trying to learn that myself right now. It's funny because this was part of what was channeled through last year in preparation for this year. And it was about these moments about being in joy, in play, in pleasure, in fun. And that by bringing that into the present moment consistently, it helps us to navigate the unknown and the questioning, and also this connection to creativity and this understanding that we are all creative. And in this space of unknown, actually, sometimes when we give ourselves permission to step into that creativity, whether it is cooking, painting, writing, sewing, knitting, whatever you feel is creative for you personally, it allows us to be okay in the present and then potentially maybe receive those intuitive hits, downloads, pings of what might be next.
I know for me, sometimes I will wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh my gosh, this is the thing I have to do. And it's so clear and it feels like such a voice of channel that I have to like take out my notepad and write it down because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to forget whatever I'm saying because this is the gem.
Yeah, I feel you on that. That happened to me a couple of weeks ago. I got the download for the title for my next book and it was like 2 a.m. And my guides were like, they just kept repeating it over and over and over and over again. And they were like, are you going to remember this? Are you not going to write this down? Like, please remember this. And it was fascinating. It was 2 a.m. and I was like wired receiving all this info.
Okay. So once you have that come through, at least for me, I'm trying to navigate how quickly I need to act upon that. Because it'll come through and I'm like, okay, that means I should do it right now. But sometimes it doesn't feel right to do it right now, even though you have all this guidance or peace or whatever it is.
Yeah, I would just say, again, listen to the body, listen to your intuition. You'll know when you need to take action, but it's also about calling yourself out if you are distracting yourself or you're self-sabotaging yourself. There's a really fine energetic line between not taking action because it doesn't feel right versus are you doing it because you're scared of taking that next leap and that faith and taking that action on the intuitive hit that you've received.
By now, you're starting to get the feel for TBM. Maybe you've heard about our workshops and you're interested in manifestation, but you just don't have the time or energy to sit down and do self-help work. We totally get it. In fact, that's why we created the Daily Practice, which is our massive library of self-hypnosis tracks that you can do anytime without having to jump into a workshop. We call these tracks our deep imaginings, or DIs. DIs are different than normal meditations because we designed them using a combination of self-hypnosis techniques, deep theta waves, EMDR-informed tools, and somatic experiencing. A fully loaded formula that is scientifically proven to help you clear your blocks and triggers on a subconscious level, giving you the power to actually create new neural pathways in your brain. So if your boss pisses you off, use our trigger DI. If you want to feel magnetic before a party or an important meeting, use the magnetic self DI. If you're feeling anxious or down on yourself or you need help making a decision, we've got a DI for all of these scenarios and more. You can get full access to the Daily Practice inside the Pathway membership, where you'll also get unlimited access to every workshop, tool, and offering from TBM. The tools in the Pathway membership will support you year-round, whether you're in the worst, a rock bottom, or second worst, a rut, or feeling good and you want to keep the magnetism going. In the Pathway, you'll effectively learn how to become your own manifestation coach, all for less than $1 a day. So even if you're not ready to start a workshop, join the Pathway and start rewriting your neural pathways now to create magnetism. Work through your triggers and get closer to your authentic magnetic self in order to manifest. Use our special code MAGNETIC, all caps, MAGNETIC, to receive $20 off your first TBM purchase. Again, that's all caps, MAGNETIC. Now back to the episode.
So your homework this week is to connect with your pings. Start listening to them. Note how they come through. Is it a voice in your head? Is it just a knowing? One of our team members said that her pings come through a voice that repeats again and again and again. Your pings are not going to go away. Not the big ones, at least. Maybe the little moments of expansion, they'll come in and out. But those big pings that literally are guiding you directly towards your manifestation will come back and hit you again and again and again and get louder and louder and louder because it wants you to see that. It wants you to connect with it. It's the same with the pings that are identifying our blocks. Those nagging parts of your life that you're like, something's not right here. Something's unaligned here. I feel like I have to make a decision here. Like this doesn't feel good anymore. That is your ping telling you to open that wound up and take a peek at it. I had someone write into me this week about how she's manifesting her career and her business, and she feels like her marriage is just not at the place it needs to be, and she's considering leaving her marriage. She's like, I know these two things are tied, but am I really going to leave my marriage right now? What do I do? And I said to her, the reason, it's nagging at you, it keeps coming up because we're really kind of at a time where those places that we've been playing small, that we've been avoiding, where we're settling, are so loud. They're so in our face. They're so uncomfortable that it's like, we're not going to not deal with it. We're going to stay in our integrity and we're going to put our stamp behind what we said we're going to do. We're going to follow through with the version of self we committed to becoming. And that means having those hard conversations. And I said to her, it doesn't mean you have to leave your marriage, but it means you have to bring to the table that how the marriage is operating now does not work. And what are we going to do about it? And have that conversation and see if you guys can evolve together. When those things are nagging at you, same when people are in a job that they're not supposed to be in, or when you're like, it's fine, I don't like it, but it's not good. And then every so often something comes up and comes up and comes up. It's pinging you to take a peek at this part where you are still settling. So how can you allow space for that to come through and be open-minded about how to take action on those things? It doesn't have to be the black and white, I either leave the marriage or I stay and I settle for the rest of my life. What about, let's just open the dialogue. This doesn't feel good for me. Does it feel good for you? This is what I'm looking for. What are you looking for? How can you say that in friendship dynamics? How can you say that in working dynamics? Listen for the pings that are guiding you towards where you need to make those shifts in your life, where you need to show up for yourself more, and even those little places to find joy. I've had so many pings where they are just straight up guiding me to like a cool ass hiking spot that I've never seen before. My pings actually started coming in after the challenge as visuals. Like I said to the universe, I really need a space to kind of decompress and journal. Where do I go? And I saw myself at Point Doom in Malibu. And then my thinking mind came back. I was like, oh, that's, a long drive at this hour. There's going to be traffic. Do I really want to spend that time in the car? Like, I should just go somewhere closer. I should is a good sign that you're talking yourself out of your ping. Why would I go all the way out there right now? That's just logically, that doesn't make sense. And I asked Daniel, I was like, do you think I should drive all the way out right now? That's kind of what the ping said. And he was like, well, logically, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but, do whatever you want to do. And I was like, oh my God. The second he said logically, I was like, I have to follow the ping. It doesn't logically make sense, but I have to follow the ping. And so I drove out to Malibu. This one spot that is literally always packed with people was completely empty. And so I had this private spot to sit down, put my blanket on, and journal. And I had the best journaling session I had had in a really long time. And then at the very end of the walk around there, I'm getting the ping to like explore this path up to this other area. And I got to the top of this path that I'd never seen. I'd been to Point Doom endless times. I celebrate my birthday there every year, go there for the sunset. Like, I've been there a lot. And I had never seen this peak. It was like, goes up to the top, and it was this huge vista, absolutely stunning. You see all the way down the coastline. You see all the way into the mountains. There was fog and mist coming over. I mean, soothing vibes is one of my authentic codes. And when I tell you, I was like in heaven. I was smiling ear to ear. I was capturing photos. I just felt so joyous and happy. And that to me was a ping of honestly deep expansion. I am held by the universe. It almost felt like a manifestation, to be honest. I felt so held. I felt like, oh, the universe guided me here to show me that, like, if I get out of my own way, if I honor my needs, if I follow my pings, if I take that extra hour to drive to the beach that's further, even though my gut and soul was craving to go there, life can be pretty freaking magical. And it was all free, minus the gas, but it was all free. I just had to follow that feeling to go there. So my homework for you guys is to listen, create space, and listen to those pings and track them, even for 1 week. Just try to follow as many pings as you can. This is our Radical Pings workshop. That is what it is all about. If you want more info on pings, go in there. It is massive. Follow those pings. It'll also help guide you in tests. When you're being tested, you will get almost like a little ping of how you should pass that test that is in alignment with your higher self, with the direction you're trying to go. I can't wait to see what comes on the other side of these pings. Please share them, tag us. You'll help expand everyone else. And also, if you guys have a really powerful manifestation story that you can condense in like a mini storytelling session, we're going to do an episode in the next coming weeks, highlighting them, breaking them down. They're almost like mini processes. So share them with us. We really want to expand people right now. Get them to see the potential that is at their feet. If they follow these pings, they take the action, they do the work. Okay, wishing you guys a beautiful week. hope you all enjoyed that episode as much as we did. And I want to give a quick little exercise just to create a bit of space to allow your intuition to come in, to kind of welcome it in as almost a ritual. So we have a pings deep imagining and a magnetic desires deep imagining. Both of them help you to connect with your intuition. But in this moment, I just want you to close your eyes, take a deep breath in through your nose, pull the air up, fully expanding your chest and your belly, and exhale with a sigh. Just let your shoulders drop, maybe rock them side to side, move your hips side to side. Take another deep breath in and exhale. And just envision a light, any color that speaks to you in this moment, pouring in through your crown chakra at the top of your head and filling up your whole body. Imagine that color going down from your crown chakra into your head, your neck, chest, arms, stomach, hips, legs, feet, and allowing every part of your body to connect back online. Every section is now communicating with each other in homeostasis. Take another deep breath in and exhale again. Allow your intuition to share one thing with you in this moment that you might need to hear. And just sit quietly, allowing space for it to come through, no matter how big or how small. Might be one phrase, one sentence. It might just be that you're safe, loved, and protected, that you're doing great. But allow for whatever wants to come through to come through. If you got any pings of actions to take or things to do, try to follow them today. And if you're someone that feels like you have a hard time connecting to your pings or intuition, I invite you to listen back to this recording, this section, or listen to that Magnetic Desires DI. This also guides you through a very similar exercise. Pings DI also guides you through this as well. And just create some space. Listen for what wants to come through without judgment, without ego, just anything that comes in that quiet space, in a calm, loving voice, and see what happens. See you next week.